time online is not taken away from hanging out with your friends, learning the piano, talking to your parents, or doing your homework. It's taken away from television. My generation watched 24 hours a week of TV per kid. This generation watches less TV, and they watch it differently. They come home and turn on the computer, and they're in 3 different windows and listening to an MP3 file and talking to their friend. They got 3 magazines open, a video game. Oh yeah, and they're doing their homework at the same time. The television may be going on in the background like ambient media, but when they're online, what are they doing? Well, rather than being the passive recipients of media, about collaboration. The old one built a website, the new one built a vibrant community. The old one thought content is king, the new one understood that you create a context whereby people can self-organize, they will create their own content. So, YouTube beats MTV. MTV says we're a content provider. Facebook beats Match.com. Wikipedia beats Britannica. Flickr beats Kodak Gallery, because you can go onto Flickr and you can become part of communities. There's a new blog every second of the day. Many of them, most of them, are garbage. And some of them are bigger than the mainstream media, and they're really good. Now, what's going on here? Well, this is called self-organization. It was 3 years ago on Christmas Day. I gave my son Alex an advanced copy of a book I'd written called Wicconomics. It's 20 years old. Looked at it, started reading it. He said, "Hey, Dad, this is a good book." It's like he's surprised or something. And he said, "I think I'll create a community on Facebook." 15 minutes later, he's got the Wicconomics community. 15 minutes after that, he has 6 members. By the time I'm eating turkey on Christmas night, he has 130 members in 7 countries, 7 regional coordinators, a president, secretary, and chief information officer for the community. Sent out a PDF of the first 2 chapters of the book. Before I'm eating turkey, I got the kids writing in saying, "Mr. Tapscott, we found errors in your book." And what does it mean to transform the ability to self-organize by orders of magnitude on a global basis, real time? What does that mean for a government? Well, one thing it means is a revolutionary force. Iran has the largest proportion of young people aged 13 to 30 of any country in the world. You combine that with access to the internet and secular information, and this is not a challenge to who's elected in Iran. This is a challenge to the theocracy. This is a revolutionary situation. And the government can attempt to control the internet, and Twitter, and Facebook, and all the rest. It won't work. This is an unstoppable force. Why can't we think about a new architecture for how we create and deliver services that involves a new division of labor in society between public sector, private companies, civil society organizations, and citizens? Portugal. Changing the model of pedagogy. I'm a teacher, I have knowledge, you're a student, you don't. Get ready, here it comes. Every kid has a laptop, getting a laptop connected to a wireless network. I was there watching these little kids studying astronomy. The teacher says, what's an equinox? The kids don't know, so she says, "Okay, go find out." Noisy classroom discussion, and the kids are on Wikipedia, and one kid, "I know what an equinox is," they have a big discussion. This is a learning environment. It's not about technology. The technology is a tool to change the relationship between the students and the teacher. Could we move to a new model where citizens become engaged, where rather than you vote and I rule, that we reach out, especially to young people who are itching to do this, and we know from the Obama campaign.
It was fantastic to listen to Dong, but now I've got to follow his act, which is not so easy. So my announcement is that I run an agency in Copenhagen that's full of digital natives. And actually they went native before I arrived, and our job across Europe is really to build the digital ecosystem. It's to create a way in which citizens can participate in knowing about their environment. We have a fundamental belief that in fact we need to manage shared resources equitably and sustainably, but it means that we have to change our thinking that by giving people property rights, they effectively manage that resource responsibly. And instead, we need to move away from the idea of exclusivity into one where more people participate in the very fabric of the world in which they live. We do think that effective democracy relies on the transfer of information to people and vice versa back into government. So how to do that around the environment? And that's really our challenge in a world which is really multi-channel, multimedia, but involving scientists, policymakers, citizens of all ages, and a lot of vested interests as well. And this is really what's at the heart of the European Environment Agency, is how to unlock people, local communities, to tell us in a legitimate way what is happening in their environment. And then to share that knowledge, whether it's traditional knowledge or scientific knowledge or political knowledge, to share that in a way where we end up, particularly in Europe, having a greater respect for resources, but also a higher quality of life. But in the last 3 or 4 years, we have taken on board the idea that to articulate well what is happening in the environment, climate change is a classic example, you have to tell stories. You have to be able to explain to people in their everyday life what it means. It is no good me going to a community of citizens and just simply talking about CO2 and ppm. I actually have to translate that into the day life of what does it mean for farmers, what does it mean for truck drivers, how can I persuade or encourage industry to really take the messages of climate change very seriously. The new way we want to work is to encourage people to come back and tell us actually what they do in large sectors. So whether they're hunters or farmers, we need a way to gather information that tells us about the growing conditions, the drought conditions, the price, for example, of water, and so on and so forth. So to do that, we launched 2 days ago through our long partnership with Microsoft Eye on Earth. This is a sort of two-way communication platform. It is for us, I think, probably where we're going to go more and more in the future.
I spent my entire professional life in public services, and that's around 25 years now. And so I followed the discussion on new public management and reinventing government and all that. What is it that makes information used? So we heard about meaningful information. Eye on Earth, exciting by the way, really exciting. But one thing is true, information has to be attractive. The second thing is, I don't know what your experience is and how familiar you are with computers. I work in a computer company, nevertheless, I have 2 left hands. I'm quite allergic against keyboards. And that means I don't want to pass any exam, any IT exam to use information. So it has to be easy to use. And it has to be trusted, of course. And all this will be supported by technology, but it's more about attractiveness, easiness of use, and trust. We cannot continue working in the way we are used to, and this is not only for cost reduction aspects, of course, this is an aspect as well, but it's also if we want to really experience all the future options, if we really want to use all the future options, we have to change the way we work, and that means we have to also put a focus on our internal organization and on employee empowerment and enablement.
131 million Europeans are already engaged in social computing. Perhaps even more staggering, if you look at the net generation that Don Tapscott talked about, 91% of Europeans in that age group have been connected or are connected. Very confusing jungle of many different social computing applications, lots of anecdotal evidence. But a couple of years ago, the institute where I now work started a research project, and we've published today, and you'll find copies outside, of the impact of social computing on the EU Information Society. And we've produced also a secondary book which deals with, if it will come on, which deals with the impact on public services of the Web 2. Both of these are available for download, and I encourage you to go and have a read what this science evidence-based research has shown.